Conflict in Communication. Week 1, Course Introduction. General Introduction. This video provides a short overview of CRS 2252, Conflict in Communication. By the end of this video, you should be able to evaluate CRS 2252 to determine if it is a good course for you to take at this time. This course does have some particular requirements in terms of attendance and participation that you should consider before deciding if this is the best course for you. General purpose of this course. In this course, we're asking one central question. How do we leverage conflict as a means for enhancing our relationships, organizations, and communities? How do we use conflict to make life better? This is based upon the assumption that conflict has two potentials. On one hand, yes, it can be destructive. It can disrupt relationships and cause stress and other forms of harm. But on the other hand, conflict can also be constructive. It can improve relationships, help us learn more about each other, and even make institutional and social change. Relatedly, you could say that conflict can be dysfunctional or functional, although in reality, most conflicts are some kind of combination of these two categories. This is the terminology, dysfunctional and functional, that you will find within the course textbook. When we talk about using conflict to make change, you may automatically think about this: trying to make social change through the intensification of conflict via protest or other forms of social action. This is something we're going to look at, but we're going to spend most of our time on this: interpersonal relationships. That is, day-to-day interactions with individual people. We're going to be considering how we can engage with others in our everyday lives in ways that will actually enhance healthy relationships and prevent dysfunctional conflict in real life, and maybe even maximize the potential of functional conflict. So this isn't really learning just for the sake of learning. We're trying to learn so as to do things differently in real life. For this reason, I would call this, that is, enhancing healthy relationships and preventing dysfunctional conflict in real life, the underlying social purpose of this course. That is, the change in the world that this course is meant to bring about. To do this, for the next 12 weeks, we are all going to work on developing our communication competence. Developing communication competence is the main pedagogical purpose of this course. That is the underlying point behind all of the activities that we are going to do. You could also say that this is the course's central learning outcome. So, to summarize, this course is meant to help students develop communication competence. The assumption is that by developing communication competence, we can improve our capacity to enhance healthy relationships and prevent dysfunctional conflict in everyday life. Communication competence. So, what is communication competence? Basically, it's the ability to manage and balance the tension between communicating in ways that are effective and appropriate. By effective, I mean that you are able to achieve whatever it is that you are seeking to achieve through your communicative act. You're able to achieve your goal. For example, if I go to get a haircut, am I able to describe what I want in a way that results in my desired hairdo? If I give a presentation at an academic conference, am I able to get my message across to the audience? Or if I need to bring up a difficult issue with a friend, am I able to do this in a way that leads to the issue being dealt with in a satisfactory way? If my communication act is effective, then I will get the results that I seek. Communicating appropriately generally means that we engage in the communicative act in a way that actually improves the relationship between us and the other party, or at the very least, minimizes the harm caused to the relationship between us. So when we say appropriate, in many ways we really mean communicating respectfully and in a manner that considers the other party's position and perspective. We can also talk about being appropriate in terms of adaptability. That is, are we able to adapt the ways in which we communicate to account for contextual, personal, or relational factors? For example, contexts such as workplaces and schools may require different communication approaches than those you would use, say, at Garbanzo's Pizza with your friends. Relationally, you would probably interact differently with a friend that you've known for years versus someone that you've just met. We also may adapt our communication based upon factors such as culture, age, and gender, all in really complex ways. So communication competence is relational, situational, and contextual. There is no one single way to be an effective communicator. It really depends on you, who you are communicating with, what you are communicating about, and the relational, situational, and contextual factors that are shaping your interaction. This is why we need to talk more about balancing our considerations and adapting to different situations. This means that developing communication competence isn't really about learning one single method or approach. Rather, it's about developing a variety of personal capacities. These can generally be divided into three areas: the cognitive, the affective, and the kinesthetic, or you could say thinking, feeling, and doing. The main cognitive capacity associated with communication competence is termed cognitive complexity. This is a capacity to view a given issue from multiple angles and to consider many different possibilities. This means that in conflict situations, you're capable of analyzing the situation before jumping to conclusions. Central to this are observational skills. Affective capacities include motivation and empathy. Having motivation means that you actually care enough about the other party to communicate with them in an effective and appropriate way. Empathy means that you're able to actually feel with the other person, to not only get in their shoes, but also kind of get in their heart. Being able to do this when you don't agree with the other person, that's a tricky but often necessary capacity. Kinesthetic capacities include being able to do a variety of different skills: active listening, assertive messaging, perspective checking, etc. We'll be practicing many of these throughout the course. However, equally important is your adaptability. That is, you need to know not only how to do the skill, but you also need to know how to determine when you should use it and be able to quickly shift your approach if what you're doing isn't working. There are a few other capacities that kind of fall between the cognitive, affective, and kinesthetic categories. These include open-mindedness. This is a willingness to see things from another party's perspective. Perspective taking. This is the ability to see things from another party's perspective. Self-reflection. This is the cognitive and affective capacity to evaluate your own past behaviors. Self-monitoring. This is the ability to monitor your own thoughts and feelings, kind of in the moment, while you are doing something. Some people might prefer to call this mindfulness. So we'll be working on all of these capacities in this course. Another way of looking at it that might be a little easier to swallow right now is to think of it this way. Communication competence means that you're able to read, reflect, and respond effectively and appropriately to others. In this course, I will be evaluating your capacity to read, reflect, and respond in effective and appropriate ways, particularly in situations of conflict. We're also going to amplify our learning, taking our capacity to read, reflect, and respond to interpersonal situations and apply this to more complex social conflicts. Or in other words, taking what we learn about this and applying it to this. Expectations. So this course is meant to help develop your communication competence, various associated capacities, and numerous skills. This requires an approach to teaching and learning that is highly participatory and active. You cannot develop communication competence just by reading the textbook and listening to lecture. You need to practice. Practice. That's where things get tricky and where we need to focus our energy when working in class together. So this means that this course is structured perhaps a little bit differently than others you may have experienced. Firstly, it requires a high level of in-class participation. This includes team-based learning, where you'll be working in small groups to review course content. It will also require in-class activities, where we will be applying our knowledge and practicing our skills. To make time for this kind of active work, you will need to make sure that you prepare for class effectively. This means that you complete the required readings and view materials that I place on Nexus. These will mainly be videos like this one and interactive PowerPoints. Effectively, you will be responsible for learning most of the basic core content. I'll focus on providing clarification and helping you to apply your learning in more complex ways. We will go through how to effectively prepare for this class in week 2. Overall, though, this class requires consistent attendance and effort because this kind of deep learning only really accumulates over time and through consistent practice and review. So if you don't get something the first time round, don't worry, we'll come back to it. That being said, if attendance, participation, or preparation are going to be issues for you, please speak with me as soon as possible. This video provided a short overview of CRS 2252 Conflict in Communication. You should now be able to evaluate CRS 2252 to determine if it is a good course for you to take at this time. And if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to email me.